Hello and welcome to our programme Q&A for the MSc in Sport and Exercise Science and Medicine. We're joined by our programme lead, Stuart Gray, and he's going to do his best to answer any questions you have about the MSc. We are recording this session, so don't panic if you miss anything. We'll be sending the recording out in the next few days. And if you've got any questions relating to sort of finance, funding, accommodation, I'll put some useful links into the chat box, and we've also got our University of Glasgow postgraduate event tomorrow, and there'll be sessions on those various topics as well, which would be quite handy for you. So Stuart, would you like to introduce yourself and then tell us a bit about the programme?
Certainly. So I am Professor Stuart Gray. I am I think a Professor of Muscle and Metabolic Health is my title. So I originally did a degree in Physiology and Sports Science and then a PhD in Exercise Physiology. I do broad research in exercise physiology, also in exercise for health, sports nutrition, nutrition for health, aging, exercise performance. So really broad range of research interests. And in this case, I'm here because I am the director of the MSc programme. So if you join it as me, you shall have to suffer and deal with. Work with collaboratively. You'll have fun. So a bit about the programme. So I guess I'll go over the general structure of the programme. For those not familiar with Glasgow, we've got 3 semesters we operate in. Semester 1 from September to December. In that semester at Glasgow, for the MSc, you'll do 3 courses, one of which is not optional. One's a core course, so it's evidence-based research methods and statistics, which is a broad course that all our MSc students do. So it's about research and statistics. It's about what's the strongest study design, how would we design a strong study, how would we analyse the study. That kind of, I guess, relatively standard research methods and stats that can apply to clinical medicine, clinical pharmacology, sports science. So you'll be doing that course. You then get to pick 2 from 4 courses that you can do. And they are exercise prescription, which is a course all about how we prescribe exercise to specific populations. So it might be exercise in pregnancy, exercise for people with high blood pressure, exercise for people with diabetes, that kind of thing. We've got a lot about cancer, Parkinson's disease. And within that course, and this kind of runs with a lot of the courses, it's not just us teaching you as well, we'll get the experts in as well that actually do this. So we get some people from charities that run some of the, maybe the cancer and the Maggie's exercise classes and people with cancer. We've got people from Parkinson's UK in. We also get some of the clinicians in and the physiotherapists in to do that as well. And that runs through a lot of the courses as well, that we try and bring in the real experts that are doing this where we can as well. The next course you can pick from is Nutritional Aids in Sport and Exercise, really just sports nutrition, where we look at, broadly, we cover things like carbohydrates, fats, omega-3 fatty acids, protein, look a bit at nitrate. We try and cover broadly the main areas of sports nutrition. Obviously, this is a 10-week course, so we can't cover everything about sports nutrition. It's not a full sports nutrition MSc, but we give you a taster of that as well. And we also run some practicals, but I'll probably talk more about that as we go. Activity health, epidemiology, mechanisms and interventions. We like our long titles. That's all about, people would say exercise is good for you, but we need evidence to be able to say that. And that course really explores the underlying evidence and mechanisms. Why is physical activity actually good for you? It's easy to say that, but what does physical activity exercise actually do that makes it good for us? And then we've got working with elite athletes, which is, of course, as it says in the title, all about how you work with elite athletes from the point of view of athlete prep, monitoring, how you might optimize them so they're ready to go into a big tournament. And again, we get lots of people in from institutes of sport, for example, that do this on a daily basis. And that course is run by Mike King, who also, he used to work in professional football as a sports scientist. He still does some stuff with the under-21 Scotland team. So he still is working at that elite athlete end. So you pick 2 courses there for your 3 courses. Semester 2, which is the current semester, for us here, it runs from January to March. And you pick 3 courses here, so there's no core courses. And I'll go through these quickly because I'm probably talking too much. Factors influencing performance. We look at lots of different things that influence performance, whether that's altitude, whether that's temperature, Lots of things that you might encounter if you're, again, working with that kind of elite athlete end of things. The physical activity and health, public health and behaviour change course you can also choose, which is all about, okay, we know physical activity is good for you from the last course you did, hopefully. How do we get people to change their behaviour? So that's all about exploring behaviour change. We then have 2 sports injuries courses, which do overlap. One's for doctors and physios and one's for people that aren't doctors or physios. They share common, kind of first half of the course is common. Doctors and physios then go in more to actually how you would deal pitch side with an actual injury, make diagnoses. And then the prevention and rehab course, it would be more about, okay, as a sports scientist, how would we actually help work with the doctors and physios to get somebody ready to get back on the pitch. And then we've got technology and analytics, which is, this is someone that's really advancing in sports science. Things like GPS monitors in football clubs, rugby clubs, how they're used to monitor load, how they're used to make sure training's effective, injury prevention, how they work. So that's all about that, the kind of rise in tech that we're using. And it's not just GPS, that's just an example. There's other techs that we use as well. And then in semester 3, it's the dissertation project, which I think there's another kind of question coming up about, so I'll not dwell too much on that.
Fab. And you touched on it when you were sort of running through there, but can you tell us a wee bit more about the sort of practical sessions?
Yes, so it used to be we actually ran a course that was just purely practical, but we felt it was a bit abstract because people then didn't have the academic content alongside it. So we now try to integrate practicals within each course. So in the sports nutrition course that I run, we do a lab where we look at how ketone supplementation influences performance and substrate utilization. Some of the physical activity ones, there's more physical activity monitoring with accelerometers. The technology and analytics, Mike had students up at Glasgow, but up at the pitches there with GPS monitors, looking at how you collect data with them and then how you analyse them. The sports injuries courses, there's a bit of hands-on stuff within there. So we've tried to now integrate practicals through each course. So each course has a bit of a practical component. The physical activity and health one, I do stuff about measuring how we measure muscle strength, because one of the areas that's covered is sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle. So we look at how we can actually measure that in the lab practical. So we've tried to then make it content specific, which hopefully makes more sense to the students. So yeah, practicals are kind of integrated throughout.
And then what about the project? Can you tell us more about that? So what's the process like? How do students pick their topic? When does all that kind of happen?
Yeah, so we start that normally, and I can't remember when we have a session where we introduce potential supervisors. I think it's November, December. We have a session where the students all come along and they will get to almost potential supervisors pitch their idea. These are the areas we work in. We all come along, tell you all the areas we work in. I then pull together a list of potential projects and supervisors, which I send out in about mid-December to students. They select by January, and then we go through the process of assigning people. So this year I've finished assigning. I had a preliminary assignment in February, and then I finalised things just yesterday, actually, so people find out about now. And the reason it can take a wee bit of time is because one of the things, so that projects are not just a lab-based traditional project, they can be done. We also do outreach projects, we do more dissertation systematic review projects, but we also do internships. So we've got quite a lot of links with local clubs. They tend to take a bit longer to sort out because the clubs want to interview people, see CVs and stuff like that. So that kind of makes the process last a bit longer. So people that weren't interested in internships found out in February, and I found out with internships just last week, and then we assigned them there. And then they begin in May officially, and they run until the final assignment hand-in is near mid-end August, where they submit their paper. They do a presentation early mid-August. So normally data collection's finished by the end of July. So you've got kind of 3 solid months of projecting.
Great. We've just had a question through there about the optional programmes. And I think you did kind of answer it in your response. It was, is it possible to choose both sports injuries for doctors and physiotherapists, as well as sports injuries prevention and rehabilitation?
So no. So it's one. That's the only. They're the only courses that you can't pick. They've got a conflict with each other because they share so much of the
Yeah.
course. So if you're a doctor or physio, you do doctor physio, and if you're a non-doc physio, you would do the other course.
Perfect. And what about the classes? Whereabouts are they typically held?
Typically held all over the place on campus. For the most part, for the most part, teaching is on the Gilmore Hill campus, which is our West End one. So in all the brochures that you've seen, that's the one, and you can see the cloisters behind us in the background in the webinar. So most of the classes are there. So within the MSc, I didn't really mention this in the background just for time. We've almost got three strands. We've got a performance strand. You're working with elite athletes, factors influencing performance. Physical activity strand with the physical activity courses, and then a more clinical strand with the more clinical courses. Some of our clinical teaching, particularly that sports injuries, is run by clinicians at Hampden. So Hampden is a sports medicine centre. For those not from the UK, it's where the Scotland football team play. And we're lucky enough to link with the sports medicine centre there. So we've got, again, the people that work with the elite athletes run the clinical side. So for their teaching, that happens out at Hampden, which for those, again, that are not aware, if you put it in Google Maps, it's normally about half an hour to 45 minutes away, maybe by public transport. There's trains, there's buses, there is parking there if people were driving during the day. There's obviously not parking on game days, but you can park there during the week. So that's the sports injuries are the only courses that really take place off campus. Sometimes for some of the other courses, like I mentioned, Mike had students out at Garscoop. So Garscoop, we've got another campus where mostly it's the vet campus. There's other stuff on the campus. It's, again, maybe half an hour along the River Kelvin from the campus. It's not far, but that's a one-off session. It's not a regular bit of transport.
And I know there's no typical week and it will vary semester to semester, but we're always asked how often should I expect to be like on campus or in class?
Yeah, it's dependent on your choices because obviously some people can pick some things, some people not, but you're probably on campus for scheduled classes 2 to 3 days a week, depending on your choices. Obviously, we hope and expect that students will be also doing lots of other directed work that they are given throughout the time, so it's not a part-time course. It's always good to stress that. For each course you do, your contact time normally on a week is 3 to 4 hours. So for each course, you'd have 3 to 4 hours face to face. The way we often work this, and I think this might be a question coming up, so I'm skipping ahead, is for most of the courses, we try not to make them boring. I stand up and talk for 3 hours because everyone just falls asleep. We give you material on our online environment called Moodle before the class that you have to work through in preparation for the class, and then the class becomes a lot more of a discussion-based activity rather than just listening to one of us talk. So there's always this preparation that you need to do prior to the class that obviously we'd be expecting you to do. And then after the class, there's reading, assignment prep and that kind of stuff. But actual timetable face-to-face, 3 to 4 hours for each course per week normally.
Good. And what about the assessments? What type of assessments can students expect?
So we're not an exam type course. We don't think exams are the best way to assess students. So we've got really, really broad variation in our assessments. There's a small exam for stats that you have to do, really small. Evidence-based medicine, you submit a research proposal, you design a study, and you submit that. We've got things like infographics and, oh no, I can't remember. I think that's working with elite athletes that we do that, or factors influencing infographics. We've got presentations, we've got poster submissions. For my nutritional aids, we do a scientific paper and an essay. that you have to write for the physical activity and health course. It's a grant submission. So you have to, as we do as scientists, we do this research, we have to get somebody to fund it. So it's a good skill to learn, submitting a grant application, design the study, cost it up, look at the flow. So it's really, really varied. I think for the sports injury stuff, the docs physios, there's an OSCE type exam where you're looked at practically. So it's really varied. It's often something students feedback that they like the variety in assessments, and it's not just your standard. Right, for each course, I want a 3,000 word essay or a 3-hour exam. It's very much not that. We're trying to assess you in a way that's useful for what you've actually learned and how you would actually take it forward into the real world.
Great. And then we've been asked, is it possible to balance a part-time job alongside your MSc?
No, no, we are realistic that people have to work. So yes, lots of our students currently, not all, but lots of them do juggle part-time jobs. It can sometimes be a challenge for people. We are realistic. We know people have to live. Rent's expensive. Lots of things cost money these days. Things are becoming more expensive. So we do appreciate that. So yeah, it's definitely possible. It can be a challenge because there can be some variability in courses. It's not, you don't necessarily have every Friday off if you make your choices. Some weeks you might, some weeks not. So it needs a bit of flexibility. And if you do come, all I would say is, if it is becoming problematic, chat with us about it, and we can hopefully help. But it's definitely possible.
And then we're always asked, is there anything students can do before they start in September to prepare for the MSc?
So it's one that's I always find a bit tricky because I think having a rest is good as well, being honest, because you've probably finished your BSc quite recently, or you've finished your medical degree or physiotherapy degree, or you've been working really hard. So a bit of a break is important for sure. I do know as well that a lot of people coming on this course might not necessarily have a sport background. So it might not be a bad thing to just have a bit of a look at some of there's things like an exercise physiology textbook by McCardle, Catch and Catch. It's very much an undergrad textbook. It's not that high level. We'd expect more depth in the MSc, but it gives you a bit of an idea of that. There's lots of other textbooks out there. Some of them are online, some of them are freely available. A wee bit of reading like that just to get yourself a bit more up to speed with what sports science is really about, just so you're coming prep. But other than that, there's not an awful lot we expect you to do.
Good. Just save yourself for when the hard work starts in
Exactly. You're
September.
going to be hit with lots of courses, lots of assessments and stuff. So have a break, recharge your batteries, most
Yeah,
part.
good advice. And what about after the MSc? What kind of careers do students go on to do?
So it's really variable because, I mean, with the 3 strands of the MSc, that gives you also an idea of the kind of people that come into the MSc. We get people coming in with very, very different backgrounds. So a lot of people come in with medical degrees, physiotherapy, rehab, physical therapy, sports science degrees, and that also then influences where they go afterwards. So we've got people come in more with the medical side. Doctors have gone on to then become sports medicine doctors specifically. We've quite a few GPs that have then come in and gone down that route. Some also then just use this course more as they'll keep the GP or whatever work it is and maybe do a couple of days sports medicine or do some pitch side support for a rugby club and use it in that way. Physios often transfer into more of rather than a clinical physio, move into more of the sporting environment, physiotherapy in private practice, or even still within the NHS. Probably another area a lot of people go into is further study still. I know you might be thinking, gosh, I've done 1 degree and an MSc and more, but a lot of students do want to do a PhD, and we set students up quite well for that. A lot of students want to go into sporting clubs, and that's something I think we're quite strong at with the course. We've got good links locally with Glasgow Warriors, Glasgow Hawks, the rugby teams. We've got students just now going into Partick Thistle. We've got students in Motherwell, Rangers, Celtic. Scottish hockey, Scottish ballet, the badminton team. I can't remember what are they called? There's a local basketball team, Caledonia Gladiators, I think they're called. We've got students in working with them just now, and often that if you want to work in sport, getting experience is the hardest thing. It's one of these things. Oh, you can't get the job till you've got experience, but you can't get experience till you've got the job. So we're quite good at getting students the experience that then leads them on to jobs. So one of our sports science people works at Fulham just now. We've got somebody within Glasgow Warriors. We've got, I think there's people within the rugby union. We've got people spread far and wide within sporting environments. So we're good at that point of view as well. From the physical activity side, some go and work within the NHS, some go and work more local councils, health promotion, these kind of things as well. So it's really, really, really broad, which
Yeah,
is a good thing, I think.
yeah, lots of options. Um, we have covered all the sort of questions that were sort of submitted beforehand there. So we do have a couple of minutes. So if anybody's got any other questions you'd like to ask, please do use the chat box. One thing I didn't have in the list of questions I sent to you before was, do students set up like their own kind of WhatsApp groups or Teams groups to kind of help each other and support each other throughout the sort of different courses?
Yeah, so we use Teams quite a lot. We set up Teams chats ourselves for the courses for chats, but obviously students don't necessarily want us involved in their chats, which is totally fine. So I don't want to be involved in your chats either. No offense, you can chat away without me. But it varies from year to year. We let students set this up themselves. It's been WhatsApp groups, it's been Facebook Messenger groups, it's been Teams channels, and if students want, we can help set them up and not be on them as well. So I think we did that this year for the students. They wanted a Teams channel, and I think there's also probably within that smaller groupings as well. So there's not an official course way of doing it, but we try and encourage the students to do that every year, and they kind of come up with their own way that works better. We're old. I mean, I've only just really heard what Snapchat really is. I don't really get it. My daughter, let's not go down there. So there's probably ways that you guys might want to communicate that we don't know about. So we're more than happy for you to use these.
Perfect. I think that's probably quite a nice place to sort of leave it there. Unless there's anything, I mean, we've covered a lot. I don't know if there's anything that we've not touched on that you want to use the last few minutes for.
No, I think I've kind of got across, because I think the main things I think our course differs from others is its flexibility and its broadness, which I've kind of talked through, and our links with sporting clubs and the ability to get people in there, which is not an easy thing to get in a lot of places. We can't get that for everybody. It tends to be a reasonably large course. Not everybody wants it either. But we do try, and but we still also set people up for PhDs. Well, we've got a lot of successful PhD students come out of the course. So the breadth and our links with experts in the area, I think, are the things I'd really emphasise within the course. And we're all really nice from the teaching team point of view.
We've just had a sneaky wee question come through there. Could you please provide some insights on the facilities and laboratories with respect to this course?
Yes, so facilities wise, well, teaching, we're in rooms all over the place. Teaching is controlled centrally on campus, so we don't have a set teaching room. We don't have a building that we use. I know other universities, if you study sports science at undergraduate, you're in the sports science building for all your classes. Glasgow doesn't really work that, so we're across campus. We have labs within the James Back building. So we've got a big teaching lab that's just a big flexible space that we pull things in and out for. And then we've got some smaller research labs that we use where we have, we've not really came across a project that we can't facilitate within that. So we've got all the equipment that you would really need to run anything. And then from the clinical side of it, a lot of stuff happens out at Hampden, where they've got the Sports Medicine Centre facilities for that side of things. So there is. No, I was going to say, no, I don't think you guys have access to, because we did a virtual tour of the labs at one point with the digital team that they used, but I got a feeling it's not available just now. Because so ignore me at that point. But we have these lab facilities available.
Yeah. What we are actually doing just now is we do have a bit of a project going on in the college to try and capture more of our facilities. So that the sports labs is on the list. So hopefully we will
There we
eventually
go.
have that in an updated version, which is good. Well, that is just us almost at time. Thanks very much, Stuart, for taking time out of your day. I know you've got a
Problem.
lot on. And hopefully we've answered all the questions. If you do have any further questions, don't worry, this isn't your only opportunity to speak to us. The administration email address is on the programme webpage, and our administration teams are brilliant at getting back to all your questions and pointing you in the right direction if they can't help. And we have recorded the session, so we'll get that out to you. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you all come September time. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.